Better than wait for it. Yeah. Are we live? Welcome back to the Restaurants Canada Show 2023, Heart and Hustle, and I'm so excited to have Roberto here for our next interview. Thanks for that phaser, dude. That was quick. But I think we both look good, but more importantly, ready to have a great conversation. First, before I get started, I'm really excited about who's been on the show today. Jay, thanks for organizing. Roberto, for you, you're somebody that I've watched during the pandemic with your time at Restaurants Canada and your time since, that just seems to have this, when we talk about heart and hustle, this absolute drive to bring value to the industry in a way that it can be consumed and heard. And I think that's based on your reputation and respect in the industry that I just really appreciate. I know we've only had a chance to meet briefly in passing, but you're someone I feel that I know. And anytime that I see something coming out from you, I know that I need to stop and just be curious. And I'm looking forward to today's conversation. But what I thought I'd allow you to do, because there's nobody better to introduce themselves than themselves, why don't you do an introduction of yourself and the company you now support, represent.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. That was one of the best introductions I've ever had. So I really appreciate that, Matt. Thank you. And Jay, thank you so much for having me today on the show. So Roberto Sarjoo, I lead the marketing and client services at Smooth Commerce. Smooth Commerce is a digital online ordering platform for restaurants. What we actually like to say is we're a commerce and engagement platform because there's a lot of people that can just take your order, but there's not a lot of people who can do the engagement side and keeping connected with your customers. And that's what we do really well over at Smooth. We, no pun intended, but it's really smooth for our clients.
And do you mind here? And I know, like today on the show, we're going to have a conversation around how we bring value to the industry. And I think, it's a big, you have one of the leaders in the industry that could have worked wherever you choose, really, with your reputation. And you've chose to work with this brand, with this company, with this technology. But what's the major reason when you talk about the engagement side? What's the pain point that somebody, an operator listening right now, might be, I can relate to this pain and this is how you help solve it? Yeah. Because for me, I see so many of my clients struggling in this area, but still not, we're still working to motivate them to change.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest challenges that any operator finds is the whole frequency and loyalty dynamic. We're in a situation right now where, as you know, inflation's rising and consumers are picking and choosing where they want to spend money. And as you know, food service and restaurants are kind of that discretionary income. So where am I going to choose to spend my dollar that I've so hard worked for and now I want to enjoy something with my family? That's one of the struggles that I find right now is that operators are struggling sometimes to understand how to bring that customer back. You can build everything, you can do things, but what is really engaging your customers to bring them back? One of the biggest things that I find is that loyalty. Consumers love loyalty. They want to be a part of a loyalty program. The stats show. I was just reading some stats the other day that I think 60% of customers will spend more money with if they're part of a loyalty program at your restaurant. So are you introducing that? Are you doing any of that type of work? And that's where I feel that there's a glaring opportunity for restaurants to help increase frequency, to help increase basket size by helping drive that frequency or driving that loyalty to the restaurant. And I know we're all faced with things like, okay, you know what, my menu is a little smaller or I'm struggling to do certain things. But I feel like that loyalty is an opportunity, if we can peel back the onion a little bit, to drive people back, to get them back into your door.
And from my own perspective, having a chance to work with a lot of different brands, from independents to multi-site restaurants and some of the biggest restaurant companies in the country. I don't think there's any more important topic than loyalty and getting people having the experience, average check size. How do we get the guests back inside the four walls of our restaurant more frequently? And how do we give them the right experience while they're with us?
And it's about what you know about your client, right? We all have one thing that I like to tell any restaurant owner is let's get back to the basics. Who is your target market? Who are you going after? You can build a profile around that. And even actually, so I teach part-time at Centennial College as well. And it's one of the first things that I teach my students is that who are you going after? Who's your target market? Because once you build that profile, you can now start building and marketing towards them. those key messages. And especially today, as you know, we're seeing a lot of more value menus introduced. But who are they built for? Are they built for somebody just to come in, or are they built for that consumer you can start driving into your restaurant over and over again? So unless you know who your customer is, you really don't know who you're talking to. And I think that's sometimes the challenge, is that, well, I want to reach everybody. And, you know, that sometimes restaurant operators, well, like, everybody's my target market. Well, not really. Not really. How do you break that down? What's the age demographic? What do they listen to? What do they like? What do they, you know, what type of meals do they enjoy? And have that influence your menu, have that influence your messaging, have that influence the marketing that you go out with.
And I think that, like, just if there's 3 minutes of our kickoff to this recording that we listen to, is who is the target audience? And we do get that question sometimes. We want to serve everybody. I have the opportunity, and I don't know if you'll agree, but I call Tony Robbins my coach. I get a chance to spend a couple of weeks a year with Tony, directly and indirectly. And one thing that he shared with me years ago is we looked at as my avatar for the target client or customer or guest from a restaurant. Perspective has changed, is he said, find the underserviced niche in the market and so forth.
Yes.
And I'm not saying every restaurant needs to do that, but when you ask restaurants, because I think the immediate response is to give an answer, because we feel that we have to. How, just in fairness to those listening out there, is it's not as easy as it used to be. Are people able to answer right away when you ask them, who's your target audience? Because I think this is some of the, as we look at our businesses different, I think it's free. It allows us to be more playful, more curious.
Yeah.
What are some of the stories of when you ask people that question or taking them on that journey to identify that avatar? To share a little bit about what that looks like.
It's one of the things that I find is that sometimes that interaction with, or that observation skill, is just who's coming to your door. And the conversation that you can have with your front lines. Your front lines are your best research group, and your front lines are your best marketers. So getting them engaged and being able to get that information from them. So we've seen a lot of brands where they will talk to their front lines and, hey, you know, who's coming in? What type of people coming in? You know, what are they asking for? What are the questions they're looking for? What are they doing? We have actually one client right now who does a fantastic job of actually promoting their mobile app, because their audience are mobile savvy, right? So they connect with their audience that way, and they do that through the feedback and the research that they're getting from their front lines. They've, you know, some brands will have to do it in person. Some brands will bring a third-party company, but it's that frontline research that you get. And we've had a number of clients, you know, same sort of thing, is that they kind of want to answer really quickly, and I get what you're saying, Matt, but sometimes they just need to take a step back. It's okay to say, I don't know. Especially as have seen the industry grow. We've seen people, you know, trying different things, trying new things, new menu items, new ways to market. We've seen all those things happen, but sometimes it's so easy to lose focus about who my core is. And that's why it's okay to take a step back. It's okay to say, actually, you know what? We've been doing so many things that we need to refocus in terms of what we're doing.
Yeah, and I share not as a judgment, I share from experience. And my vulnerability was I felt in the past I had to answer that question quickly, and my avatar, my business was off.
Yeah.
And we had to change it and make a shift. And we did coming out of the pandemic as the market changed on us, as it has for a lot of my clients. But I wouldn't use the word avatar, you might use a different word. And what do they want to need from your restaurant, and how do we deliver it? Because one of my biggest fears, and I love your experience here, is who owns the guest right now? Yeah. We have these massive marketing machines, and I have all the respect in the world from them, but we fall victim to algorithms, whether it be third-party delivery or social, and that's AI advances. How do we continue? And we want to leverage AI, but how do we make sure that you own the interaction with your guests, loyalty or whichever? Because if we don't, we could be drowning with a lot of choice. Would you agree with that? And I'm not right on that. That's more my judgment as a guest.
Big data, as you know, there's tons of stuff. You can get a ton of data, but also at the same time, you are limited on some of the platforms you may choose as a restaurant owner to gather that data. Like, for example, if I'm a customer and I order through, you know, a third-party delivery platform, that restaurant really doesn't know I've ordered from them 5 times. And so there becomes a challenge there in really knowing who your customer is. And I think you hit the nail on the head, is that owning that data and really understanding who your customer is, because that influences everything you do. You know, in my world today, yes, we are a first-party white label ordering platform for restaurants, right? So you don't have to necessarily be on those third parties. But I'll actually challenge the norm, and I actually tell our clients to say, hey, you know what? Actually use both, because it's an acquisition and a retention game. Use the third-party platforms, acquire clients, get them to experience you, get to experience your food, then shift them over to your online ordering platform. All of a sudden, you've captured that customer. Now you know who they are. You're getting their data. You know how many times they've ordered. You know what their basket size is like. You know what their favorite food's like. You know when their birthday is. Right? All of these things are opportunities for a restaurant owner to leverage in their marketing and what they do, whether it's on social, whether it's through basic flyers. But all these things are opportunities to get to know your customer. And I can't tell you enough, with some of the changes that are going to be happening with privacy rules and emails and even ad tracking and retargeting, you as a restaurant operator, it's going to be imperative for you to start gathering data and knowing who your customer is. So you almost want to start to do that yesterday.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. And this conversation really excites me because it's the challenge of during the pandemic. We were doing all these things, third-party delivery, but I found so many operators have gone back.
Yeah.
And there's this great company that I can say because I'm not part of Cisco. Jay will give me shit on the Cisco side, I'm sure, but Alouette Go in Liberty Village is driving back to their own mobile app, even through third-party delivery experience. And I think I just love to see it, and we want to own our guests. We want to use them for acquisition, but one of the marketing managers I talked to from a big brand recently is how many times, whether you're an independent or not, how many times are we paying to get the attention of the same guest?
Exactly.
Exactly. So, a good example of somebody holding their own guest, or that's you've coached somebody, supported somebody, working through the day where they take that shift and they're reaping the benefit.
It's funny you mentioned Alouette Go. They're a client.
I didn't know that.
There you go.
And I think their stuff is.
Yeah, I mean, they've got the right attitude. In speaking, I remember when they were launching, I spoke to the marketing. I spoke to Quentin there, and we had a really good conversation about, okay, what are you doing? What is your plan to engage? Because there's one of the things I always say is that you can leverage technology, especially like an online to get your guests back to you owning them. But the challenge is, it's not field of dreams. It's not if you build it, they will come. How do you actively now reach out and engage with that customer to tell them, hey, come and order through me? And I think what the pandemic did actually, the latter half of the pandemic actually educated the customer a little bit in terms of the fees and some of the costs that restaurants faced, and how their margin just got ate out by some of these third-party platforms. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of brands like an Alouette to say, hey, you know what? We want to own our guests. We want to show them that experience, because as you know, I was talking to a very senior VP, or very senior president from a food service brand, and he's like, in today's digital age, in the world we live in, is that you can't always get somebody in your store for you to show them their hospitality. Sure. So where are they going to experience your hospitality? On here. So you have to give them the experience that you have in your store on your brand. And I think that's where, like I said, had a fantastic...
I just want the audience to hear that, right? So often we think about giving an experience inside of our restaurant, but how are we giving them that same experience at every touch point they have, digital, whether it be web search, whether it be through app, web search, third party, every interaction is the opportunity. And as you can tell probably by the tone of my voice, I'm relentlessly passionate about this topic, because I'm terrified about the results if we fall into bigger marketing machines for the ongoing health of the restaurants I care about and those that I support. And I care about our industry. But I think it's just that thought process.
No, you're bang on. I think it's owning that brand. And we saw a lot of brands take to social during the pandemic and build that audience.
Yeah.
And they built an audience, and that audience has followed them now out in the pandemic.
Yep.
And they've become loyal, and they've become more frequent users of that brand. And that's why having that brand level or that brand experience is so important, not only on your social, through your digital ordering channels, everything that you do, you mentioned it before, every single touch point.
Yep.
It doesn't matter if they're coming through your door or they're ordering from you online through your website or through their mobile phone.
Yep.
What is that experience that you're giving them? And it goes back to the basics, right? We always say when we're developing a restaurant brand, what are some of the biggest things that people really want to see? Well, show me a good picture. Like something as basic as I've worked with brands who have, they've got a great brand. Their food is delicious. The challenge is that it doesn't come through the screen when I'm looking at it because they haven't invested in taking a great photo of their pizza or their pasta or their noodles, right? And those little touch points, it's funny. It doesn't seem like it makes a difference, but when somebody's hungry, they make decisions emotionally.
Yep.
And they will make decisions based upon how it looks. And that looks appetizing as hell. And so I'm going to order that because it looks delicious. Right? And those things help tell the story about your brand. Something as simple as a meal and the story behind that meal.
And again, this ties into active conversations. I just had 2 weeks ago, I got brought in with a client that we supported on service strategy creation and then for a new app development.
Yeah.
And it's over $1 million investment. They're a large group. And I'm looking at the developer saying, we need to have our service strategy delivered through the app. And they're like, I don't get it. I'm like, here's our service strategy, 3 steps. I'd say what it is, but people don't know, keep it confidential for that group. And like, we just need that experience. And we had to go back and forth for about 3-4 hours. And we're like, okay, now I really get it. So every time we interact with the guests, how do we create that experience? And I think even everything from pictures to interactions to copy to imaging is important. But I also think it's looking at our business that what changed in the pandemic are the trends. Like, do we know how many times, do you have anything on guests interacting, the importance of guests interacting with your brand digitally and how it's driving traffic? I know it's a big question, but
So one of the stats that I reference a lot is from the National Restaurant Association, and they did a study that approximately 60% of consumers would prefer to order directly from a restaurant.
I remember when you shared that, and that's something I talk about all the time.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, and that is the first thing that I think people need to realize is that they want to order from you. They want to be in touch. You have to give them where Sorry, let me take that step back. There's a saying that I've always lived by that says you have to move at the speed of the consumer and remove obstacles for your consumer to interact with your brand. And I think that's where some of the opportunities lie. So we know that 60% of people love ordering directly from a restaurant. So give them that opportunity. Take advantage of that opportunity for them to actually order from your restaurant and then engage them. And I think this is where it really gets you really start to have fun as a marketer, re-engaging a customer to say, hey, by the way, I saw you like this, and now I can personalize my messages to you, right? I can segment my audience by where I live, by what they order, and I can send them that message. And all of a sudden, I'm doing that, quote unquote, one-to-many to one, because as you know, what happened before, we were just spray pray, right? It's just a one-to-many message. Come try our new X because it's delicious. But now, as platforms have gotten better, and as we start to gather that data from our customers, we can now say, hey, Matt, I know you like this, but also you fit into this group that likes this. So now I can send you a message to say, hey, Matt, I haven't seen you in 3 weeks. Take advantage of this offer. Come through our platform, and the other thing we'll probably get into as we go down this path is that it's not always about discounting, but it's about adding value.
Yes, I could not agree more. Yeah.
Now that I know who you are, I can actually now start adding more value to get you to engage with me more frequently than actually trying to discount you to get me to engage with me again. And I think there's sometimes a gap there in understanding the difference between discounting and adding value, and how do I do that?
Yeah. And this for me in 2018, I had the opportunity to go to a conference called The Gathering in Banff, and they do what they call interstate things. So they had Applebee's there. So Applebee's in Canada has got 10 locations, great brand, but not something that's really on the radar. Part of the biggest restaurant company in the world, I believe. So we sat through the session, and what the CMO shared was that they're data and how they were able to, what they were looking at. And I always say success leaves clues, and I'll say it repeatedly as we record this episode. But they were looking at the direct targeting of their guests then in 2018. But I think then it seemed like they were leading. Now the question for me for those listening is it an option for your brand? Like I think this is something that gathers attention and we might be curious about. And if I'm sitting with an owner-operator that's looking at 23 and beyond, it's how do we need to behave now that gets us the results we want and deserve in the future. And before pandemic, this might have seemed optional, but like Applebee's, they or Under Armour saying they're not a sportswear company, they're a data company. Dominate's a data company.
Exactly.
Data with intention.
Yes.
Not data for data's sake, but actual data for their guests. And when she shared with me back then that when you're driving past, it would recommend what you ordered last, not what they're advertising, just some geo-targeting, and how they were cutting it, I was blown away. And now we're bringing this, Applebee's being a big company, you're bringing this type of opportunity to all operators.
Everybody has the opportunity to do it. I mean, there is a lot of options out there. And I think any operator can take a look and see what they want to do. But I think we can do a lot with data. The challenge sometimes is we have so much data that you just get lost in it. So it's almost like, well, what do I want to achieve? What do I want to accomplish? And then how do I use the data to get that? And how do I use the data then to influence my plan? And I think that's, if I could give any recommendation to operators, is what do you want to do? Do you want to increase basket size for your appetizers, your mains? Am I looking to grow my my carryout business, my delivery business? Like, what do you actually want to do? And then look at the data that can help you get that, because there is opportunity to get that data. And if you may be working with the right company and maybe just not asking the right questions. And I think it's really understanding what those questions are to ask and leverage the hell out of your partners, right? They're just not there. Well, they shouldn't be there just to sell you something, right? Leverage them. They have the right people, I hope, on the team to be able to do that. Like, I love having these style conversations with our clients, right? There's little things that I'll tell clients today that say, well, do you know actually what percentage of your business is pickup or delivery or through in store or through your mobile, right? Do you know your numbers? And I think you probably say this a lot anyways, right? You won't know anything unless you really know your numbers and really understand what that percentage of business is. And then again, leveraging that data.
And I think that's what I'd want the audience to hear, because one thing we share with our clients is sometimes it's about sexy technology. And I joke around with that statement, it's very intentional. But technology is there, and this is what I heard through your entire message, to be there in support of our goals. So what you're sharing is, what is your goal, and how to reverse engineer how the data and the process that you follow can deliver on their goal. And I want an operator to hear that, because the objections I get from operators are, I'm not tech savvy, I've got too much information to be invested in, it didn't work, and some random technology. Now it's okay, what are your goals and how do we find the solution that helps deliver on our goals? And I think that's so brilliantly framed by you and what you're delivering for your team, because it's not about us, it's about your team.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I go back to the whole "if you build it, they will come" or shiny ball syndrome. Well, it does this, but does this shiny thing actually help me achieve my goals as a restaurant operator, as an owner? Does it help me increase my margins? Does it do that? I think you have to ask the hard questions to yourself to see if you can do it, because it's sometimes, prior to the pandemic, this technology was only, you can only invest in it if you were some of those bigger brands, because it just wasn't, it didn't make sense. The ROI necessarily maybe wasn't there.
Absolutely.
But the pandemic has taught consumers, has done actually a really good job at teaching consumers how to use this and get the best experience out of it. And so now, how do we reach our customers there? And technology has come in a way where I've worked with brands where we developed ROI documents for them, and we showed them that said, if you continue down this path of only using the marketplaces, you'll be here. But even if you shift only 30% of your business, you could be saving thousands of dollars, thousands. And I'm not telling you to shift all your customers. I'm only telling you to shift your biggest fans, your 30%, your loyal customers. You're going to save thousands of dollars. So do the math on the back end and really understand what type of value. And then again, like I said, you have a loyalty program and a well-designed loyalty program. Every 2 times somebody comes in, they feel like they've got something they feel like they've earned a reward. That's engagement. You're getting them right then and there. All of a sudden, they feel now that, hey, you know what? Oh, my next order, I'm going to get X or I'm going to get Y. And that loyalty drives that frequency. That frequency drives that basket size. Like the equation sometimes seems simple, but it's with the right plan and execution. That's really where it comes into play.
And I couldn't agree more in just looking at the simplicity. So one thing we have to do is look at the actual trends. So and with every talk that we do, whether it's a keynote presentation or a workshop with clients, somewhere in the first 10 slides, there's a slide that says what led to your results in the last year will not bring the same results in 2023. And I mean that genuinely. So how do we need to behave? Who do we need to become to continue to have a thriving business, not to use cheesy sayings, not just to survive? Our industry pre-pandemic, we had less than 5% net profit across the country. We deserve more, we can get more, but we have to look forward as what supports us. And how do we have the opportunity, you don't have to, you have the choice, the cost-effective choice to look at solutions. And again, sometimes when people share tech with me, and I'm a curious customer here, it becomes about the stuff and things in tech. And what you've shared in the last 25, 30 minutes, it's not about that. You've talked only about the operator. And those are the conversations I get so excited about.
No, exactly. It's really understanding what the technology can do for you and your business and how you leverage it. I mean, you can walk around the show, you can find everything, and you could break the bank.
I've had some clients who brought us in to do that. They're like, it's not working. I'm like, it's not about that.
Exactly. So I think it's getting back to one of the. Again, this is another framework that I teach my class, but it's your purpose and outcome. What is your purpose and what is the outcome of that purpose? And once I know that, then I can build my plan. And, you mentioned Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins is all about setting goals. And
intention and outcome.
Exactly. Same concept, right? So once we know that, then we can start identifying what are the things that are actually going to help me get there. Not only from an operational perspective, but from a consumer experience perspective, because those things now, the lines are kind of blurring and they're almost going hand in hand, right? From a efficiency perspective. And I think that's where, Chipotle does a really, really good job. They've invested in their online business so much that they now in their restaurants, you might know this, is that they have a total digital only checkout lane or digital only lane. So they have the lane for their clients and their customers who walk in the door, their guests, and then a total separate one for all their delivery and online orders, because it's just more efficient that way. Right. So how can you take the process of, in my world, online ordering, and how can you make it more efficient for your business? What are the things you can put in place? Ask yourselves the hard questions. Put yourselves in the shoes. It's okay to say that. It's okay to say that you don't know. It's okay to, like we said at the very off the top, it's okay to say that you don't know, but reach out to your partners, reach out to the right people, go for a coffee, ask for the advice, because you're going to see a lot of people doing a lot of different things, but not everything's going to fit with your business.
And that's the gentleman who just politely interrupted his Dominic Carucci for people to know, but who spent multiple years looking at the right loyalty. And had some solutions that didn't actually now has a solution. I believe that, but again, the major brands are leading, whether it be in our industry or outside. So if we look at the gas station business on loyalty, or you look at bank, it's such a proven strategy, but how do we make it fit for us, and how do you make it fit for you? But in one sense, how do we create that experience, and how do we maintain our guests? And there's not a conversation we'll have this year that's not part of the conversation.
Yeah, it's 100% right. Is that your guests come through that door, ordering online, they are doing that because they're a fan of your brand. So give them the experience and leverage the data so they know who you are and you know who they are.
So the one thing that I'll ask is, and I think it's about having a conversation. I'm not sure if I said it on this show, but one of the questions we say is, how do we stay curious a little bit longer? And I think this is meant for any operator out there, but how does somebody connect with you to have a conversation? And when I connect with you, but to understand the need and everything, we're trying to help them. How does somebody connect with their team to have a conversation in a curious way to see what may be possible? Because the trend and how our guests engage digitally,
Yeah.
if you look at the trends, we're not going back, we're going forward.
Exactly. For me, it's all about education. And Matt, I love having these conversations. I think I could talk about all day about this.
I'm sorry I ran your way over.
No worries. But if anybody wants to connect, feel free to reach out to me, LinkedIn, Roberto Sarjoo. Find me there. Shoot me a DM, Roberto@smooth.tech. You'll find me there, at Rob Sarge on all the platforms. ROBSARJ. You'll find me there. I'm not a hard guy to not get a hold of. I'm easy to find.
Strangely accessible.
Strangely accessible.
Yeah,
I like that. There you go.
You look kind of like Ryan Reynolds. See, Jake, wraps up. This is one of the conversations that I think is most critical right now. We're not here to directly promote any solution. You can tell through the tone of my voice how passionate I am about this. I appreciate you and your team. I respect and deeply value everything you put out on social to educate and continue to share valuable content in the industry.
Thank you, man.
And thanks for such an awesome conversation.
No, thank you for having me. It was great. And like I said, we're going to continue this over and over again, but continue doing what you're doing, Matt. I just want to share that I love what you're putting out there as well. I watch your videos. I love the tidbits, the education, the 2 minutes. I think they're fantastic stuff. So keep up what you're doing, and I'm sure this is not going to be our last.
No, it won't be.
Awesome.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Jay, you got to do Wayne's one. Yeah, you got to do it. Sorry, this head cold just hasn't. It's just this cough. It hasn't been like this. The doctor said it's going to work through. I'm going to get cold stuff.